Good morning, ladies. Happy Monday. How are you? How was your weekend and all the things? It's good to see you this morning in the society. I did I'm in an amazing course. I'm always learning, and I believe that either if we're not growing, that we're dying, right? It keeps me sharp. It keeps me always bringing in other, oops, let me mute that, bring in other modalities so I can teach to my clients. And honestly, variety is one of my top human needs. And so what that looks like for me is I like to be bringing in all kind of ways that I can actually serve my clients better. So I wanted to come in here and us have a conversation about, well, emasculation. And what exactly is emasculation? Well, emasculation is one of these things where we're essentially cutting off a man's balls. Not literally, obviously. We're not going to Lorena Bob at that. But what we can do is we actually can do that in spirit. We can do that energetically. We can do that in the way that we show up. You'd be surprised, actually, how often we are emasculating men, including our sons, in ways that you never knew. I didn't even realize this was a thing. I knew that I would hear when I was younger, I would hear, even younger, hear women talking about their husbands or something. It was just not very kind. I know I really noticed this when I moved out to a community called West Chase, and I had never been in suburban land as a young woman, especially a mom and a wife. And I remember walking into the first bunko and hearing it was packed, and the neighborhood was new, and this house was packed. And I remember all the women buzzing and drinking wine, and there's a lot of laughter and cackling, and it was really great. And then I could hear someone in the very back, very tipsy, saying, one day one of you is, you're going to realize that your husband's cheating on you, and you're going to lose everything that you thought was true. And I remember my eyes were like, Cameron was a baby. We had just moved into the space. I was in the mortgage business at the time and had my business. And so I got to know many of these women because I closed many of their loans. And I just remember going home that night to Cameron's dad. I mean, just mortified. And then, of course, my love for sisterhood really started way before that. But then I realized how much pain that some women are in. And a lot of times when and so essentially, as this woman went on and on talking about men and how they cheat and all this, I was like, she did a blanket of all men. Well, we all know that not all men are bad men. Just like we know that not all car salesmen are cheesy, right? I mean, it really is, it's something to be aware of. But just with her blanket statements out of her own pain, was emasculating men in general. And, the way that I like to teach from the masculine and the feminine is that we actually really can, as women, show up and be a part of this community, the world. And we all know that we can do most everything a man can do, and probably do it more efficiently and possibly do it better. But if we really think about it, we don't really want to. And not even think about it, if we feel it, do we really, really want to? And that's something that I'm going to talk more and more about here. And a lot of you have been following me for a while. You know about my intervention with Tony Robbins years ago, where he pointed out that I was energetically bringing men into my life that were going to hurt me. And it came from a primal space of me wanting to be overbearing and control, what have you. So back to the woman that I met years ago, 21 years ago now, hearing her talk about men in that way, it was sad, right? And I know now more than ever that what happens for us as women, our brains are definitely made differently. And what happens is that we will lash out of fear. And I don't mean fear of being chased by the saber-toothed tiger. What I mean is that anytime that we're not seen, heard, or understood, or felt safe, our brain will do what it can to get us back to safety. And it's going to look different for everyone. And so that was a huge wake-up call for me. In my current sisterhood, we are actually on the masculine section, and it's a module where we are talking about healing our own masculine within us, the toxic traits, and then also really I'm making women very aware of how are they viewing women as a whole. When you Google map and look down at the gender, how do you feel about men? And then also the other spectrum is like, how are you viewing yourself in your own masculine? And so as I have women acting this out, they really are embodying and really feeling for men out there and the burden that many, many men have. So something that John and I really saw last year in 2020 was how a lot of women are operating out of primal fear because there's a lot of uncertainty, and there still is, right? And whether you're the primary breadwinner, and there's plenty of women that are, or you're dual income and you both contribute equally in whatever way that is, or you're single, whether you're a single mom or you're single, and you're out there in the space, there's a lot of uncertainty. And so safety can look like, are we going to have a job? I mean, are we going to have a paycheck? There's a lot of unrest here in the States, with the election, the inauguration coming up. And, there's all theories that there's going to be this big upheaval and riots, in here in America. And John and I even had a conversation this morning about, what does that look like? What would it look like? And parading, not the horribles, but what does that look like? How do you prepare for something like that? And in our devotion, in our Bible study this morning, it talked about fear. And so fear is the false evidence of, appearing real. And we also want to, prepare for what's ahead. That's why we have retirement accounts. That's why we save for a car or a home or our kids' college. That's one reason why we go to our annual visits with our doctor, right? So this has been a huge, huge revelation for the women right now that I'm teaching, as they are literally embodying what it feels like just to sit on the couch as in your masculine, not just the man. So that feeling of any time that you just want to escape, anytime you just want to shut things out, anytime, and you may do that by watching The Bachelorette or Netflix binging, eating chocolate, whatever it is, right? It's a way for you just to detach. And that is not necessarily unhealthy. It's just a matter if it's chronic and you're constantly going back to that's when you need to pay attention. But back to what I'm talking about here about emasculation, and I'm just going to touch briefly on it here. We can, talk more about it another time, or you and I can have a conversation and go deeper. I am going to touch on this in a lot deeper way in the workshop that I'm doing Tuesday night, which you are welcome to come. There's a link here to register. Is what does that look like? Is any time that we, anytime that we interrupt a man, and when our eyes roll potentially, or you're projecting your disgust. I have a list here that I wrote down, and even in my frustration sometimes, if I tell John. If I'll tell John, I think we should do it this way over this way, it doesn't mean that we are submissive to the point where we don't speak our mind. But there is something beautiful in knowing that a man, including little boys, they want to help. They want to help us. They want to make us happy. And if we actually, don't think about the woman I mentioned earlier, if we choose to view men through the lens of all men, are inherently good, right? And if you can choose to see the divine in them, you might see some goodness in them. Again, and I am not talking about men that are hurting other people or hurting children or women or any of that. I just mean in general, because remember, where energy goes, energy will come up where we're focusing. So where focus goes, energy will flow. And I think there's something to be said about a lot of people thinking about getting sick, and then they end up getting sick. A lot of people that are really worried about their bills, and they're not living in gratitude, and they're not doing the work to make sure that they're paying their bills. A lot of times what happens is that they're constantly in that space of scarcity thinking. So criticizing, back to the men, criticizing, complaining, that we're never satisfied, comparing our partner to another partner. Well, if you would only do what he's doing, then we wouldn't be in this place. Or why can't you do what he did? I see this a lot with women that are remarried, for example, and they all of a sudden choose to not look at their current relationship, and they compare it to all the good that happened in their past with the men, right? And so things were better when I was with so and so, or you know what I mean. It's we already know that's rude, and if you can always also go, wait a minute, why am I even saying that? What's going on here? What need is not being fulfilled here that I need to pay attention to? Because there's clues there. There really are. So I'm not saying that we overall don't need to talk about if there's needs that aren't being met. This is more about the subject of paying attention to everything and being very, very, very aware. Awareness is the first step to shifting your life and actually having a much deeper experience with this life that God's given us here on earth. So comparing, ignoring, stonewalling. I mean, we all know what it feels like whenever our partner just ignores us, right? Just shuts down completely. So we can do the same thing as women, right? Let's see, teasing. Oh yeah, teasing. That way that we can, mock them or tease them and, maybe like pat their belly if they've gained a little bit of weight, or just undermining them in general. I mean, we've all done this. And if you haven't, then God bless you. You saying, I want you to be teaching with me here, please. But bossing around is another one. Having a lot of, I like to say, bass in your voice. And I want to sidestep for a second. And there are times where when we're in our alpha, when we as women are in our masculine, is when we are in the go, go, go mode. And it is necessary to get things done. I'm in the process now of prepping for this workshop for tomorrow and also filling my next sisterhood. And when I'm in launch mode, I am, as you can hear right now, even teaching right now, I am in a more masculine space because I'm holding the masculine pole. All right. Does that make sense? So John and I have an understanding that, we give each other grace in this space because there's absolutely no polarity between us right now. Polarity comes when there are two opposites that attract. And this is the downside of a lot of people working from home with their partners, that they never intended on it. It's also sometimes the downside of literally working with your partner. And it really takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of grace. It takes a lot of being artful, which is why I'm so passionate about bringing this to women around the globe, teaching you how you can make the art out of the mundane. Because we need to, ladies, because we have to get rejuvenated. We're going to lose our juice if we don't. So, John and I we know we're in this space. We give each other some grace. We give each other guidelines. We also kind of accept that, it's going to be a little bit flat regarding our love affair. And there may be a little bit of stuff going on. He also knows because he's been trained, and we also want you ladies to actually express this to your partners, and it's very artful. So we need to make sure we talk about this, privately or in a workshop space. And we definitely do this with my coaching clients. But how can he, when you're in that space of being bitchy, what can he do? What my ex used to say, I was competing with him, but that was not my intention, and I didn't think it was. Maybe I was. Something to think about, because what that means, and I'll go back to what I was saying in a second. It really, if you really dive down and dig deeper, like tease that apart, honey, and go like, what was really happening? What need wasn't being met? This will open up so much here. And I love that you brought this here. Let's talk more about that. What does that look like? And of course, you and I can have a private conversation if you'd like to go deeper. It's not conscious that we're being competitive. Right? It's not conscious. But if we feel like that maybe we could do it better, then so be it. Now, this is something interesting too. There are some things that we actually will do better. For example, I don't know if y'all know this, but my background and a lot of my success has been built around the real estate industry, owning mortgage companies and investment properties and real estate, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember when I first started doing this work and I had the intervention and I was studying under all these teachers, the scary thing is that a lot of people will make it very black and white, masculine, feminine, man, woman, even though the energies will work with same-sex relationships, right? The truth is that is true. And I'm much better at decorating. I'm much better at seeing a vision in rehabs. I'm much better at landing a deal in real estate. And there have been a couple times in this journey over the last decade since I've been in this place of this work of coaching, outside of business coaching, but in the space of relationship and the energetics with men and women, that I allowed myself to falsely just go, well, he's the man, he's going to do that better, right? And it was so gawky. I like to use the term baby giraffe legs because I grew up with my daddy leaving when I was 12, my mom constantly telling me that I didn't need a man and I needed to take care of myself. And all of that's true. But when mom and I talk about it now, was her heart open? Was her heart open? And a lot of times it wasn't because she was in survival mode. She was single mom. She loved my dad. She didn't want it to end. That was not her vision for her life. And so a lot of times when we are spewing out what we say is wisdom to teach our children, we actually are projecting our own childhood wounds and our own wounds. And so this is where we have to take radical responsibility of what we are projecting. Again, we are always projecting something. You all could probably watch this video with no sound and probably see how passionate I am about this. I posted something on one of my stories this morning with no sound. It was a message to one of my clients, and I was excited because she's renewing with me, and I sent her a message, and you can feel what I'm trying to say without hearing any words, and so we're always projecting. So that's the reason why we have an epidemic of boys that are growing up to still be boys, not knowing how to treat women because they're scared. Because especially, you look at the Me Too movement and everything else. Men are scared they're going to get castrated by society for opening up our doors sometimes. So, and I know I'm being very extreme and I'm doing it for a reason. But if you step back and look, why are you being competitive? Is it because you think you can do it better? And then instead of just the two of you having a beautiful conversation of, who is better at XYZ, and actually not taking offense to that, there are some men who actually cook better than women. Okay, so be it. There's so much there to unpack, and it's so much more than we have time to talk about here. I just realized I've already been talking for 17 minutes. So I appreciate all of you that are sticking here, and then any of you that want to add some comments here, and I'll go back on the page and I'll do some coaching and give some feedback there. The other way that we actually can emasculate, let me go back to my notes, is condescending. Condescending, we all know what that feels like, or taking over. No, just get out of the way. Get out of the way. I've got it. Oh my God, really? I've got it. We do this with our boys sometimes, right? If we don't want to mess up the kitchen, and so we're like, we go ahead and we don't teach them how to maybe make eggs on the stove or something like that because we just want to do it on our own. I know my mom did this whenever we were little, my brother and I, with the Christmas tree. She loves Christmas and she loves to decorate. And because we didn't, we didn't necessarily do it in the way she wanted us to, a lot of times she would just kind of come in and take over. How often have we done that? It's chronic, actually. Another term, and this was fascinating when I learned this, when we use the term, it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing. It's so refreshing, being in the presence of XYZ, or it's so refreshing that you're showing up this way, which presupposes that they actually weren't perfect just the way that they were. So, it really is true that a conscious, healthy man, that they fall in love with us exactly as we are. And probably when we fell in love, we're giving them a lot of what they needed, which is respect, honor, care, unconditional acceptance, right? And I am not talking about any abuse or anything like that where there's emotional abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, I mean, any abuse, right? But I'm talking about just in general. If you go back to when you were falling in love and the two of you were in a committed space, or when your babies are first born, there's this unconditional space of how much you love them. And then the criticizing comes because you're burdened. Or you're comparing your kids to somebody else's kid, and you want them to be like those kids, or your motherhood is all wrapped up in your kid to be doing what you think it needs to be doing, whether you didn't have that as a child or you're giving them better opportunities, fill in the blank. And I know for me, I've definitely been guilty of that with my son. He's 21 now, and we've had amazing conversations about this, about, what does it look like for me to honor him in this space, and for me just to be a mom. For me just to be a mom in the sense of just nurturing him, loving him, that does not mean that we do not teach them lessons. I'm not saying that, especially when you're a single mom. One of the things I hear most from women is that they are craving to have strong masculine leaderships for their kids if they're single. And I know that's a big thing. And this is not just women that are, in the lower economic space. This is women across the board that are craving for there to be a masculine in their life, but also for their children to see. And this is where it starts with us. So it starts with us and honoring men in general. So I want to say a couple of things here about withholding, and I know I'm really in a teaching space here. It's just, I can't help myself because I see how chronic it is. And I look forward to really going deeper with you. But anytime that we withhold verbal affirmation, like praise. We don't praise them. Anytime that we avoid anything that he needs, anything that we take away our time, food, maybe we don't make their meal, or we purposely don't make the meal that they want. I know it seems so small and it's so petty, but we think, actually, a lot of women do, that we can shame and guilt a man into doing what we want. And I have a process that I've actually teach women on how to communicate with men and speak man. I mean, literally speak man. And I've had some women, come down the pipe and say, is this manipulative? Am I manipulating him into getting what I want? That in itself, that mindset, says a lot about probably the way you were raised, or maybe some pain that has happened to you in your life. Because it's only manipulative if your heart's closed. It's only manipulative if you're in a space where it's all about you and what you're getting. And so just something to pay attention to. Again, in the society, I really, my goal here is to go high level. So it gives you an inkling of, I think I want more of that. I think I want to know more. And that's one reason why it's a free online group. And so we can teach and we can support each other here, and then always take it to a deeper space. But honestly, being not going deep is really difficult for me, and so hence the reason why I'm still here chatting with you. So I hope you find value in this as well. Have you ever told a man, "What do I need you for?" Gosh, what do I need you for? Or thought it? Remember, our thoughts can be projected out there. I mean, I'm giving you some harsh things here. Because it's real, we're doing that. The other thing, especially women that, are in this embodied space and they start learning about the masculine, feminine, and they really start doing this work with me, they're guilty of saying, can you be more masculine? Go in your masculine. I need you to be more masculine, or I need you to be a better man. And then I will. I mean, that's horrible. You basically just take their balls and just throw them in the incinerator. Same way, if a man tells us, I really desire for you to be more feminine, you need to be in your feminine, that does not make us want to sink into the juiciness and vibrancy of who we are. The misnomer is, and the one reason why I like to teach these essences in the way I do, because we are both masculine and feminine. God gave us alpha and omega. This is who we are. The key is, though, is that many women these days, because of society and the way we were raised and et cetera, we've gotten away from, women gathering and taking care of the home. At the industrial age, we were out there in the workspace, and women got a taste of, doing it all. And they actually liked the fact that they got their ego stroked, and they didn't necessarily see it as a gift to be home with the kids, making a home for their family. And so we actually did a lot of this to ourselves in the sense that we got a taste of that, we wanted it, and then we also want to be home. And a lot of reconciling that I do with women is that it actually is okay that we also have a part of us that wants to be taken care of, that we actually need a man. And there's a difference between needing someone from a place of scarcity and actually more like, yeah, I really need you. And I can guarantee you that most men, especially the men that you probably are yoked with, and this is not always the case, of course. I know there are situations where it's not healthy, and we can talk about that too, that they actually want us to need them. And so it's something to think about here. So I'm going to ask that not only pay attention to where you are, cutting men off and emasculating them. I'd also like to start a theme here is that where are you appreciating men? Where are you appreciating a man and a boy even for being a boy? Where can you, instead of trying to bring all the groceries in yourself, can you actually look at your little one and go, hey dude, do you mind helping with this? This is kind of heavy. And letting him get all puffy. Let him actually get in his little nervous system what it feels like to actually be needed by a woman, right? I'll close on this. I could go on and on and on. I mean, I have literally, a whole month module on the masculine and in my course. But I remember when I was in India, and I was at, I was there with Tony, and I was watching Mean Girls 2 came on, and I was watching this. And y'all know Mean Girls, if you know, I think Lindsay Lohan's her name, super cute, and, Mean Girls. And is it Mean Girls? Is that it? I think that is it, yes. Anyway, I just remember that the second one was horrible in the sense that there was this really adorable teenage girl who was dressed up super tomboyish. That in itself is not a big deal. She had cutoffs on, and her dad was a mechanic, and he was teaching her how to work on cars, but she was in a space. She was very bitter that she didn't need a guy. And the little segment that I watched while I was on the treadmill that caught my eye, because I had been doing this work, studying the work, starting to teach the work. This is maybe 7 years ago or so. I can't remember. But I watched her young date go to open up the door for her car door, and she slammed it. She's like, "I don't need you to do that," and she just hopped in the car, right? How many times are we not allowing someone to help us with our luggage, on the airplane, or allowing someone to open the door for us? Another thing I want to leave you with here is, and you can start now. You might say, well, a lot of men just let the door, they won't open the door for me, or it slams in my face. I've been known to actually just stand there, and just wait for him to open the door. Not just a date or a partner or my son, but I mean, let's just give men a chance to step up and step in. If you do it with an open heart, it actually can make the world better. I think y'all know by now that the way I like to view the world is the world better because I'm having this conversation. Is the world better because, I decided to run that errand for John? Is the world better because, I took on this client and actually decided that this client was not going to work for me? Told me I emasculate him. We are currently separated, and you just explained to me what he meant. I love him, and I acknowledge how closed off my heart was to him and how masculine I've been. Oh, girl, let's have a conversation. That is so beautiful. I mean, I am here, obviously, in the business of transformation. I mean, I'm a coach and a teacher, and I can't promise that all relationships will turn around. But a lot of times, this deep inquiry will do that. And John and I, to date, now it's 64 relationships that were on the brink of divorce. And many people that were already divorced are literally coming back together because they're learning this work. You don't need both partners to be doing this. You don't need both. It actually takes one. And it's also great if it's two. So, oh my gosh, please, 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 let's have a conversation. I love that. And sometimes it just needs to be over. I'll admit that. But if we can actually do this from this education, we are not teaching this in schools. Let's face it, our parents didn't teach this either. And if you watch sitcoms, which we don't watch TV around here, but I remember when Cammie was little and watching like iCarly and those kind of things and catching, even what was it, Tim the Tool Guy? There is so much emasculation and even in TV. I mean, honestly, there's no honoring of men. I'm actually in certification right now in how to bring this work that John and I do, which a lot of you that are already students of mine are like, how in the world is she going to bring this into the church? But it really is about honoring and also women to give themselves permission to feel, knowing that they have to feel to heal. And so that's why I work with my clients and talk about what's a practice you can do to actually maybe move some emotions through your body before you approach your partner or your kids get home from school. Even in quarantine time, there's a practice, I can teach you a practice that'll allow you to release some emotions. So when you do show up, you're more grounded and centered, but it's not about being this redwood, where we don't move, which is super masculine and needed sometimes, right? I mean that when they are met, when your kids are met with you, or your partner's met with you, or you're having even a Zoom date, because a lot of people that I talk to don't live in Florida and they don't have a lot of the freedoms that we have here under quarantine, and they're dating online. We can do this online. If you've been working all day like this, the last thing he's going to want to see is another redwood. What he's going to want to see is some vibrancy there. And if we can accept, ladies, that we actually add so much color and vibrancy to the world, imagine what that does for the men in our life. Again, I am not saying that we dumb it down or we play ditzy. That is not what I'm saying at all. And I don't think any of you that are watching still right now are taking me and thinking that's what I'm doing. So I am looking so forward, and I'm glad that this kind of stoked some fire and it got some of you thinking. That's what I'm here for. And then I'd like to go deeper. So let's have a conversation about that. I do have a workshop tomorrow night. I think y'all have all heard about that. Please invite women to the society. This is a place that I want women to know more and more and more about how we can show up better for the world with our strength and also our vulnerability. Our boundaries are our masculine. And there's a way that we can have toxic boundaries, and there's also a way that we can have sacred boundaries. And so all these things I actually do talk about in my course. We will talk about that on Tuesday as well. Please continue to DM me anything, any topics that you're interested in. And for all you gorgeous souls that did comment here, and you're like, let's have a conversation. Why not? You never know. I am proud to say that we do have many women that are looking at themselves differently, already divorced, living in other homes, and they are, having conversations with their exes, and either in a space of just sheer, I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't know, even if these other partners remarried, and it just, wow, I want to cry. It changes the energetics, and what does that do to your kids? It's talking about healing generational wounds when parents can actually come back together and see themselves as, wow, we fell in love at one time and maybe we've moved on, but thank you. And there's something so honoring when we can go back to those partners and say, I just didn't know. Even if you don't want to get back together, right? My ex-husband, there was abuse there. I can definitely see areas where I definitely emasculated him out of fear or childhood programming or what have you. And I have written a letter and made that declaration that I just didn't know. And mine would be around, my viewpoints around money and, thinking maybe he was showing off. And then I would point it out. It's like, wait a minute, he's worked hard. Why in the world would I take that away from him? But I realized a lot of what I was doing is I was trying to take control of the relationship because at that time I wasn't feeling like I had to say so because it was pretty oppressive in some ways. So, does that make sense? How you feeling? Hope you're feeling inspired. Some of you may feel nauseous right now. I get it. I know I did. I could not believe how much I had done this in my world, and so innocently. So please don't beat yourself up. know that everything can change right now. And it just, today, we are celebrating the birth of Martin Luther King. And, there could be a shift. And let's see, the quote is this. Hold on. The quote is this. Excuse me. If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. What if all of us today just start viewing men, including our boys, including the person bagging our groceries, including the person that's that beside us, and just choose to see them through the eyes of, wow, look at that man. Look at who he is and what he does, even if you don't know anything about him. What if you choose to view men like that? And these little boys, and let them carry your groceries. Let them, get see what it feels like. So good. So want to not in a future relationship. Amen, girl. That was me, 100%. And guess what? That's why embodiment, what I really teach, is that you want to rewire the nervous system so you know what it feels like when you feel that trigger. We can learn everything in our head, but if it doesn't get in our body and really rewire the brain and the nervous system, trust me, you will do that. I know I did. And that's where, all the personal development and counseling, it was great, but it wasn't until I started down this practice, which is why I am so passionate to teach women that I want to take all of those things, my rows and rows of books in my office, and I wanted to get it in my cells. And so that's why I created my program as my healing journey to get to this place, because I found that I did do that. I did get into another relationship. Even after I learned, I had been in counseling and done all the things, read all the books and gone to all the Bible studies and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as I started dating again, ended up in another relationship to recreate, childhood wounds. So that's maybe, a little bit more about me, how this came to be. So I cannot wait to hear from you. Please don't be shy. I mean, this is my jam. God has made my test a testimony, and Lord knows my mess a message. And He's given me the gift of transparency and to use my voice. So thank you for trusting me in this space. And I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday, and or maybe hearing from you so we can schedule some more a deep dive here. Cannot wait to talk to you. Bye.